I'm now going to show you how we would cut different styles of die in our Go Power and Emboss. Different machines will take different sandwiches, so you may need to check with those manufacturers, but this will show you how we would use them in this machine and anything that has this similar idea of the wide mouth. So I've got here a few examples of different dies. So we have, this is the standard circle, and this is a thin die. So a thin metal, or also known as an etched metal die, made of steel and coated either with a non-stick coating or Teflon. And this is what 90% of the dies on the market are, and this is mainly what you will use. But there is a second style of die which is still prevalent, which is called a Bigz die, or is called a steel rule die. And it's very difficult to see with this die, but you must be a little bit careful, because if I hold this one forward, you may be able to see that there is actually a slight little design of a rabbit on this one. So you can see there is the design, there we go, of a rabbit. But it's all coated in foam. Now these dies on these lines are sharp, so these will cut more materials than standard dies. So just be careful not to start pressing too hard into there, as the blade that is in there is quite sharp. And these come in different sizes, so you can get the standard size, which is this sort of almost cassette or CD size. You get this sort of larger size as well. You can also go up to these being even A4, and they're designed more for quilting and fabric. So those are your two pretty much standard dies. You can have a couple more. This is one called an original die, and although it's a different size, it's exactly the same depth as the standard sort of Sizzix or Spellbinders Bigz die, steel rule die. You then have these dies, which are more, these are also known as originals, but this is thicker than a standard die. So this is sort of thinlet, and you can see there, you know, a lot thicker. Hold it that way, there we go, you can see perfectly that we're getting, that is a little bit thicker, but obviously nowhere near as thick as a Bigz die. And you also have these which are known as multimedia dies. So these are heavier and again thicker than your standard dies. So these come up by about another millimetre. So when you actually feel across the top, you'll feel that this one is further raised than this one. And this is a multimedia die. So I'm now going to take you through how we would cut these different dies. So we've gone through the cutting of a standard die, and that's a standard plate combination. So next I want to take us through cutting of a Bigz die, or a steel rule die, or a cassette die. So for this you will need to change your plate combination, and what I'm actually going to use is I'm going to use a little bit of thicker card for this, because these are what they're designed for. So for this you will need 2 of your C plates, or a C plate and an equivalent 3mm plate. I'm actually using the Crafts 2 one here, which is available as a separate item. And all we're going to do is I'm going to take a piece of thicker card or board. So this is a piece of card called dolly board, and as you can see, this is sort of, I think this in America is known as chipboard. It's a lot thicker. So again, I'm going to trim this down so that I've got a piece roughly the size I need. So we'll take this to a 5 3/4 square. You would need to cut this with scissors or with a guillotine. I wouldn't use a paper trimmer, as it is very thick, as opposed to a standard piece of card. It's a lot thicker. And all we have to do for this die is I'm taking my newer plate on the bottom, so this is my C plate. We'll put it in the right orientation. So this is my C plate. I then take my Bigz die, I put my card on top, I put my second C plate on top of that, so to make the sandwich. So there is no B plate, there's no A plate in this. We simply take that again to our machine, press run, we may need to guide it through, and that will then take it through, apply the pressure evenly and accurately to that bigger die, and again take it out and check, and you can see there, again I'll hold that one up, we have a perfectly cut rabbit in a very thick piece of card. So that's how we would use that, and it doesn't matter what size of die that is, anything up to an A4, is exactly the same sandwich of just using the two C plates together. So the next style of die that we have is the original die, or this slightly thicker. Now if we go with our standard sandwich, then this will be a little bit too thick. So what we would do for this is we take our base plate, we take our die, and you notice this is a little bit longer even than the plate. I'm going to cut a piece of card, and I'm using standard card on this one, although these dies will cut something a little bit thicker. So I'm just going to cut a strip of card. We'll pop that on, and again, so that it doesn't move, I will tape it down to the die, and then we will take a C plate, and again our second C plate, have our sandwich ready, deliver that to our machine till it stops, press run, and the machine itself will grab that sandwich and just run it through, again applying an even pressure all the way across the die. And once again, we will take that from the back, the door will close, stopping the machine. And when we turn that over, you can see that's been cut in to that pattern. So there we go. Again, if you're worried that you're not cutting, it's not cutting out perfectly, you could then add a metal shim into there. So you see this one has cut through and cut out, but it's not quite as released as I would like it to be. So all you would do is again take your metal shim now, place that one in, place your original die down, again take a strip of the card, and we will place that on top just like that, and again 2 C plates. And what you will find with die cutting with different dies and embossing and using any die cutting machine is that you may need to play with different plate combinations until you get the right combination for what you're trying to cut. So that's gone through. I've now added a metal shim, which adds a little bit more detail and definition onto there. And we'll take this one out. So this time you can see I've got a quicker, crisper cut all the way through on that one. So just pop that out on every section and element, and you'll see that. And the main difference with this style of die is that this style of die is slightly sharp, but also does not give you any form of curling of the edges. So if you see there, the edges are all cut completely flat. We don't get that curl that we get on a standard die, but that's how the die was designed, and obviously this will cut a lot thicker material. So I'll just pop that bit out again just to show you that we've got that beautiful cut, and I'll show you there we've got that beautiful ivy trail cut all the way through. A few little bits in there that I would just take out with my pokey tool, but that's how we've cut an original die. So the next die that we've got is a thicker or a multimedia die. Now this is a die that will cut paper and card, but will also cut other materials again that are that little bit thicker, a little bit like the board. So if I grab a piece of the board, I'll cut you a piece of that using this. So I'm going to use exactly the same sandwich as I used for the original die at first. Here I have a simple piece of the this is dolly board I'm using, so this is a bit like the chipboard. Again, the die is very long. A lot of these dies are made in America, where American card size is slightly bigger than the UK card size. So this is a thicker multimedia die, and you notice these are from America, so sometimes they're a little bit longer than the standard card size we have in the UK. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to put on top my C plate, and I'm going to put on top my B plate. So I'm using the same combination as I was using before, but I'm just going to again offer that to the machine, press run. The machine will go a little bit slower as the sandwich we're putting through is a little bit deeper, and that will run through, and we'll simply, once it's finished, grab that out from the end. There we go. As I said, it will run slower. We grab that out from the end, take off our plates. We can see that it's all cut on this side. So I'm just going to peel that excess off, and then we will take that out. And again, I would bring in my poker tool, and I can just pop those little excess pieces away. But really simple and easier, and the way to use a multimedia die. So that's running through all of the different die combinations you can get. Again, I'm not going to pick all of the pieces out of this. We can see that it's being cut through and that everything is cut. But that always is the most boring element of anything. But that's how we would use our Go Power and Emboss and cut different sizes and different styles of dies.